Saint Teresa had the same message as that song. Let nothing upset you, let nothing frighten you. God does not change. Patience achieves everything. But how do you experience that patience? How do you get in touch with that changelessness, that constancy? Well, by becoming still. And yet, how do you do that? Do you even want to do that? I shared at 9 o'clock, and I think some people were shocked, but it's controversial to teach meditation. I remember hearing after I left a position that someone announced that, isn't it wonderful that we don't have to hear about meditation anymore? That I was gone. And there's been a lot of pushback over the idea of meditation because it's, the New York Times had a headline. I'm just going to read it to you. You would rather endure electric shocks than sit alone with your thoughts, study finds. They did a study in which they had people have a choice between getting painful electric shocks and sitting in quiet reflection, and 2/3 of men, smaller amount, 1/3 of women, would pick the electric shocks. Why do we do that? Because we're not comfortable with the idea of opening up a space and lifting up higher. I open up a space and I lift up higher. Together? I open up a space and I lift up higher. Those are the two functions, the two aspects of meditation that we're going to talk about today. And I was kind of expecting to have a sparse crowd today because I figured that some people would see in their e-blast, meditation, I think I'm going to roll over and get a few more Z's, but you all showed up. And the beauty of meditation is that you can engage with it at the level that you choose. No more, no less than you want to. You can decide how much meditating you want to do. In this book, which we're studying for 4 weeks, The Prospering Power of Prayer, she really redefines prayer and she redefines prosperity. She sees prosperity as a non-material thing, as a source of energy and vibration and light and substance that then outforms through finances and healing and relationships and guidance and anything else that you need. But she has a very non-materialistic view. And she has a different view of prayer. And she says, of course, there's the traditional prayer and there's also the affirmative prayer, but she says the highest form of prayer is the prayer of silence. But again, that prayer of silence is often misunderstood. One of the reasons why people don't like to meditate is because they think that they have to do it perfectly. And I'm here to tell you, I've been meditating since I was 14 years old, and my mind wanders every time I meditate. In fact, meditation, Lynn teaches mindfulness to her clients, and she's also taught it at the high school, interestingly enough, to a side class. And what she teaches is that you aren't supposed to blank out your mind. You're supposed to return your thoughts to the focus of your meditation when your mind wanders, because it will wander. Your mind is going to wander. My mind is going to wander. Together, my mind is going to wander. So it's like I'm giving you permission to be imperfect. Meditation is not about being perfect. It's a process. And here's the deal, and this is what I've noticed through experience, is that the very function of moving my thoughts from whatever squirrely thought I'm having back to whatever the focus is in meditation, that is the value of meditation. That is the thing that generates the energy, the vibration, and the consciousness. Not blinking out my mind. Although I've experienced that after some times, but that's not it. It's like lifting weights. The activity, think about this now, the activity in your thought of moving your thought from the thing that you're thinking about over here back to your God thought, your spiritual thought, whatever you're focused on spiritually, that movement is like lifting weights and exercising. Now, when you're exercising and lifting weights, is it about the barbells? No, it's about the muscles you build. And similarly, you are lifting the weight. It's a metaphor, it's not perfect, so don't overthink it. But you're moving your consciousness back to your God thought. And every time you do that, you unleash an energy. You release an energy. And that is the meditation. And so you're doing it just fine. Any meditation is just fine. Any attempt that you make, any time you spend, anything you do is just fine. It's about process, not perfection. She has a wonderful definition here. She says, in this form of prayer, meditation, we take a few prayerful words and we think about them silently. And as we think about them, they grow in our minds as expanded ideas, moving us into a feeling of peaceful assurance and right ideas, and perhaps later into right action. Now, if nothing seems to be happening in meditation, we nevertheless have made our minds receptive to God's good, which manifests later. In other words, there's no losing, there's no failing. It's the energy, the saturation of your consciousness, which is really what meditation is about. With a new energy, vibration, and light occurs regardless of what your subjective experience of it is. As I prepare on Saturday nights and Sunday mornings, the whole of my preparation, although I certainly jot a few notes down that I'm thinking about, and I work on a few things and go over some things, but really the whole 95% of my energy goes into building in meditation the vibration and the energy, and the way I do that then saturates my being, hopefully, so that I'm able to have something to offer. And this is something that occurs that makes a difference in your everyday life. When you go forth into your day, you will be a different person because you meditated that morning, if only for 5 minutes. Eknath Easwaran, who's, I think, one of the finest meditation teachers online, and don't Google his name, it's hard to pronounce, but Google Blue Mountain Center if you're interested in this. He said something that was kind of cute. He was a Fulbright Fellowship professor of English at University of California at Berkeley. And his students, because he was from India and he practiced yoga and meditation, would come to him with questions. And he would answer them, and gradually he formed a little group and they started studying. And he finally quit his professorship and went full-time, and that center still exists. But he tells a cute story about himself the very first time he ever saw the Olympics on television. He said, one of the practical reasons to meditate is to tap its power to solve your everyday problems. It's very much like getting momentum at a track meet. While I watched the Olympics for the first time on television, I was surprised to see how far back some of the athletes went to get a running start. In the pole vault, one chap walked up to the bar, then turned around and walked so far back that I thought he had decided to go home. Now, if you didn't know about the pole vault, you might think, what's the matter with that fellow? Instead of competing, he's running away. He's not running away. He's going back to get the momentum he needs for a really big jump. That's the purpose of meditation, too. Instead of getting out of bed and plunging directly into life's maelstrom unprepared, you sit down for a while in meditation and you get a good start. And then, when you go out into the world, you have a good reserve of energy and security from which to draw. So you say, well, how do I do this? What do I do? Whatever amount of time you give to it, however you choose to do it. But one of the most powerful things you can do is to take a series of affirmations like our opening invocation. I use that almost every day. And I take it aloud, and I take it whispered, and then I take it silently, and then I move with it, and I guarantee you, at a certain point, my mind wanders, and I take the next line, and I continue to do that. And as time goes on, maybe my mind doesn't wander as much. But regardless, every time I move my mind from the squirrely thought over here back to the God thought over here, there's an energy that's released. That's a form of meditation. You can take the prayer for protection. You can take a mantra word like God, or whatever it is you have that you want to work with. But taking your mind and going back to that original thought can create a powerful energy, can create a powerful light, and you can withdraw that energy as you move into your life. What you're doing is saturating your being with energy and vibration. I saturate my being with energy and vibration. Together? I saturate my being with energy and vibration. It's like being a sponge. You take it in, and then what can you do with it? You can wring it out as the day goes on, but you've got to continually recharge and replenish. Now, there's more than one way to do it, and one of the ways that's a little non-traditional that I want to share is that golden key. Remember I was talking about the golden key to prayer by Emmett Fox. We've got copies of this outside of Fellowship Hall. And basically, it's while you're going around in your life, when you're worried about your problem, you get your mind off your problem and you put it back onto God. That's the whole golden key, and he spells it out in a beautiful way. I really want you to pick up a copy of it if you don't even have a copy of it. But I had somebody come up to me this last week and say, I failed at the golden key. I'm not doing it right. You see, every time I try to think about the golden key, my mind wanders. And so, it's like I'm not doing. But the thing is that's not what the golden key is. The golden key is not keeping your mind on God. The golden key is every time your mind's off God, you bring it back to God. And then that movement from here to there, from the squirrely thought to the God thought, it's like you're lifting weights. And you are building your spiritual muscle, and that unleashes and unlocks the energy and vibration that then saturates your being. Is this clear? I mean, any problem in life that you have is like a weight that you're lifting. Now, some of those weights that you're lifting are labeled health problem, or relationship problem, or prosperity problem, or I need some guidance. Whatever it is, we think that it's about the barbells. It's not. It's about the muscles you're building. So we're all focused on the prosperity or the healing or the harmony or the guidance. And those are important things. But the real value is that as you work with these principles, you build your spiritual muscles. And it's the most practical thing you can do. When you connect with this spiritual source within you, things change. I first learned to meditate when I was in the Youth of Unity. The article in the newsletter this month's about that. I was assigned to do, every week I was assigned to write a lesson, what's called prayer panel material. And I was supposed to do that so that the Youth of Unity members could have a meditation time together. And so I was 14 and I was elected to the regional office, and I dutifully wrote my lessons, and they were terrible. It just was, dead and lifeless. It didn't mean anything. So I asked, well, what do I do? And what came to me was, before you can write meditation material, don't you think you ought to meditate? So I went on my bicycle out into the woods to a place that turned out later was a sacred Native American spot in a canyon with a creek going through it, and with the eucalyptus and the bay laurel trees. It was just so beautiful. And what I did was I would sit with one of my dad's spiritual books, and I would take a line, maybe 2 lines, and I would just kind of think about it. Now, I hadn't read this definition of meditation. Nobody had ever told me about it. I thought I made it up. Turns out that's what Edgar Cayce taught. That's what Eknath Easwaran calls passage meditation. That's what so many of us, so many of the teachers do. That's what Emily Cady teaches in Lessons of Truth, and that's what Catherine Potter teaches in this book. Taking a word or two or a phrase, and I took the book Search for God by Edgar Cayce. That was the second book. I took another book by my dad's library, and I would take these words and I would move with it, and then after a while, I would be in this energy that would be saturated, and I would have something to write. And I did that week after week. Well, I've got a couple of stories from those days in the Youth of Unity that kind of are a little bit troubling, maybe. But in one case, I want to share this story, and it's somebody that I've known in the Youth of Unity, or since I knew her when we met when we were 15 years old. But when she was about 17, she seemed very distraught and very upset, and I didn't know what was wrong, and I asked what was wrong. And she confided in me that she had had a psychotic break. Voices, it was drug-induced, voices were telling her every day to kill herself. And she was so upset. Now, I was meditating on a regular basis, and I asked in my meditation time, what should I do? What does she need here? And what came to me was that I picked up the newspaper that day, I opened it up, and I saw a service in a New Thought church for a healing service, and so I just had a feeling to take her there. And in that meditation healing service, she had a healing, and it stopped for about 6 months. Well, she was in a better space, but then I noticed she was upset again about 6 months later, and I went up to her and I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "It started again." And so I went into meditation. And what came to me was transcendental meditation. That she needed to do something every day in order, which is a mantra-based meditation, in order to build this energy. So I took her to those people. They taught her the meditation. 2 years ago, I saw her for the first time in many decades. She had had an incredible life. She'd become a chiropractor, had become very successful. She was the person who didn't believe she should bring any children in the world because the world was such a screwed up place, and she had the most wonderful children who had grown up successfully. She had the happiest marriage you could ever imagine, more than anybody I've ever seen. She was just this incredible light. But she said, Greg, since that day, I have not missed a single day meditating. Meditation is the most important thing in my life. And starting that day, she had no more problems. Why? Because she saturated her being and built up an energy and a vibration on a daily basis that became a part of her being, and she moved with it, and she was able to move through her life with a strength and an energy and a power and a light that got her through it. Now in your life, ask yourself, where could I use that energy? In what situation in my life can I use that energy? There was another person in the youth community around that same time that I had a similar experience around. I was meditating. I was living in Berkeley at the time, and I was meditating in my apartment, and this girl lived in Reno. And in those days, the telephone bills were very, very expensive, so you didn't make a lot of long-distance calls. But I kept, in my meditation, I kept getting this really bad feeling and thinking about her, and a bad feeling and thinking about her, and I couldn't drive it out of my mind, so I just picked up the phone and I called her, even though it was daytime rates, and I said, "Hi, are you okay?" She says, "Yeah, I am." "Oh my gosh, I can't talk, the stove's on fire," and she hung up. It turns out later that my calling her brought her into the kitchen where the stove was, and the stove was on fire, and the house would have burned down. Now what is that? That is bringing yourself into a vibration and an energy where you're open. You see, meditation does two things. It opens up a space within your being. And that space is like emptying a cup. And into that cup, then that vibration, that energy, that life, and the guidance that you need will pour. The other thing is, it's moving up higher. And in the Bible, as I shared during the meditation, Moses would go up on the mountain, he'd come down with the Ten Commandments. Jesus would go up on the mountain, came down, knew which disciples to pick. We get the guidance that we need when we go up to that higher place. How do you go to that higher place? Well, I shared a very simple and almost childlike meditation exercise of imagining yourself going up in an elevator. Maybe that helps you. Maybe something else might help you. Maybe it's just something you need to do when you go out into nature in your garden. Maybe maybe there are different other methods that you can use. But one of the powerful methods is the question and answer process. Now this is a process that I've shared many times, and the paper is found right outside of Fellowship Hall, and you can take this paper and use it as a journaling exercise. Ask a question, go into a space of I don't know, and then see what happens. And that lifts you up into a place. It's opening up a space, but it's also lifting you up into that higher place where you get your right answers. You know, when my dad died, that happened. He had a tumor, and we were told that we had to put him in the hospital because he was going to have terrible pain and we wouldn't want to see it. And he had no pain, and finally one day he complained that he had pain. And I went into the next room, which was my old bedroom, where he kept all of his books. And I was meditating on it, and I just found myself getting up spontaneously, walking over, picking out a book off of his bookshelf, and it was by his meditation teacher, Betty Bethards, and it was questions and answers on the spiritual path. It opened spontaneously to the question, what do you do when a loved one is dying? And it gave the answer. And my mom's not really a woo-woo kind of person, so I took it down to where I said, Mom, you're going to think this is weird. And I told her about it, and she said, no, let's do it. And it said to get into bed with them, hold them. They may be holding on because of your ties to them. You need to give them permission and tell them you love them, get closure. It was a beautiful exercise, and we did it. And his last words were then, and he said, I love you. We said, I love you, and he closed his eyes. And he was in a coma for the next 3 days, but he had no pain at all. Now what is that? That is opening up that space of possibility. You can receive guidance in meditation in ways that are really astounding. I remember a woman who was the bookstore manager of a church where I was serving came into my office and she said, "Well, Greg, I received the meditation class I'm supposed to teach." And I said, "Oh, well, tell me about it." She said, "Well, I was just meditating and just the words radical forgiveness popped into my mind, and I got this whole outline of this whole class. It would be an 8-week class and go through all these different things." And I said, "Oh, Radical Forgiveness, the book, you read the book then by Colin Tipping." How many of you have read the book by Colin Tipping, Radical Forgiveness? It's a wonderful book. It had just come out that month. And I'd read about it, and being the bookstore manager, I figured that she had seen the book. She says, "No, I'd never heard of it." She'd received all the information, it turns out, step by step. The entire outline was exactly what was in the book. Well, she said, "I don't want to know what's in the book. I'm just going to teach the class first." And she did. And then she got the book out and found out that it was exactly what she was teaching. She got in touch with the author, Colin Tipping, and went around the country teaching his method, which was also her method. Because where did she get it from? She got it from the One Mind. You know, when Karen Buchanan said to me, "You need to write a children's book," and I said, "Okay." I'd never written a children's book. I was meditating and I saw the whole book. And I went down and I typed it up before it would leave. I was going to put it off because, who wants to do that, right? But no, just do it right then. It's like writing a song. Say, "Oh yeah, I'll write it later." Yeah, good luck with that later. So, and so what can you do in your life to engage with these two processes of meditation? The first process, creating a space. The second process is lifting up higher. I create a space and I lift up higher. Together? I create a space and I lift up higher. Now you may take 5 minutes. You may take 10 minutes. You may take a half an hour. You can do whatever it is you choose to do. Maybe for you, the engagement is working with a question and answer process. Maybe it's working with the golden key. But the principle here is the same for all of us, is that we need to be lifted up higher to that place where we're no longer trying to think our way with our intellect through our lives, but we're opening up to a higher possibility. We need to open up a space into which the thoughts of God can be received. They said that the word for prayer in Jesus' language, Aramaic, is setting a trap for God, is what it meant, literally. Setting a trap for God. But you've got to be in that space of openness and receptivity for that to take place. So, how do we do this? What do we do to make this happen? Well, one of the things we're doing during this series on prosperity is we're working with an affirmation called My Prayer Treatment for Unexpected Income. And this morning, I went through this as a meditation exercise for maybe a half hour, 45 minutes. We're not going to do that today, but we're going to use it as a series of affirmations, and we're going to build that consciousness and that energy. So I'm going to ask that you get your little sheet out here. And I want you to join with me on this. And we're going to do this together, okay? You ready? Together. My life is blessed with infinite abundance. The abundance of God is my infinite resource. I am now in the flow of abundant blessings. Good is now flowing into my life through unexpected avenues. God is actively at work in my life, blessing me. I open my mind to receive my good. I expand my capacity to give and receive my good. Wonderful, positive, surprising things are now happening for me. With God as my source, I am amazed at my rich abundance. I give freely and fearlessly into life, and life multiplies and returns my gift many times over. Many rich blessings now manifest in expected and unexpected ways. God is now providing for me in wondrous ways. I am grateful, and so it is. Amen. Take a deep breath and let it out. Set aside the papers in your hands. And take another deep breath and remember all the times that you've heard or read, and he went up on the mountain. Moses went up on the mountain and he came down with the 10 Commandments. Jesus went up on the mountain and he came down knowing which 12 disciples to pick. And every time somebody went up on a mountain, they understood that in a primitive sense, they thought the mountain is where God lived. And in a sense, in the higher consciousness, the place where we lift up higher, that is where we are experiencing our oneness with God. And we can lift up higher too. This is our visualization of lifting up higher. But rather than lifting up onto a mountain, we're going to do a visualization with an elevator. They didn't have elevators in those days, but we do. So we can take this as our visualization. We imagine ourselves in front of a set of elevator doors, and above it says divine guidance. We push the button and we go onto the elevator, push the up button, and we go up, up, up. And the higher we go, the brighter we are, the more spacious we are, the more energy we feel. We keep going up, up, up. We're elevated in every way, lifted up in every way. And when the doors open, there's a spacious, beautiful room with natural light coming in from all sides, all above and around. And we create it. There's one little chair in the middle, whatever it is that is comfortable and perfectly fits us. And we sit in this chair, and this is our divine guidance chair. And the light comes in from all around, energizing us, vibrating in us, moving us. This light that is shining from all the natural openings around us is shining upon us, lifting us up, and elevating us into that place of receptivity, that place of divine guidance, lifting us out of the intellect into the intuition, out of the lower mind into the higher mind. Feel the energy, feel the vibration, feel the light, experience the light. And take into this light something that you would like to see illuminated. Either a question you might have, or just something that's coming up, or something that's in your heart that you're thinking about. And without thought, just feel light illuminating this question, this thought, this subject. See light. Know that the vibratory light, the energy, the intense living vibration of light shining forth is lifting up this situation to a place of divine guidance. If I already knew my answer, how would I feel? And assume that feeling. If I was already supported, how would I be supported and assume that support? If my mind was already clear and had the right answer, how would I be thinking and assume that thought? If I had the confidence to know that my every need was met, how would that be for me? And just assume that and accept it. Accept it. Accept the light. if my every need were met, how would I feel? How would I think? What would be my posture, the look on my face, the muscles around my eyes? How would I breathe? How would things be for me right now? I assume support. I assume support. I assume support. And so it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So now we're going to take our offering, and the thought of the offering that we're going to take is, I give in the spirit of abundance and I receive abundantly. I'm just going to say that alone one time. I give in the spirit of abundance and I receive abundantly. Together. I give in the spirit of abundance and I receive abundantly. And silently. And again aloud together. I give in the spirit of abundance and I receive abundantly. And so it is. Amen.